These are 5 activities for teaching English in the AI age. I hope you find them useful. The decision debate. One of the simplest ways to get students talking about a text is to stop beginning with open-ended analysis. Instead of starting with, what do you think about this character? Try asking, was this character right to do what they did? That small change makes a big difference because now students are not just being asked to comment, they're being asked to take a position. This activity is called the decision debate, and here's how it works. First, choose a key decision from the text. It could be a moral decision, a risky decision, a selfish decision, or a decision that changes the direction of the story. For example, was Victor Frankenstein right to create the creature? Or was Macbeth right to act on the witch's prophecy? Or was Romeo right to return to Verona? The specific text doesn't matter. What matters is that the decision has enough tension for students to argue both sides. Second, make students choose, yes or no. No neutral answers at first. That's important. Students can refine their view later, but at the start they need to commit to a position. Third, ask them to defend their answer using evidence from the text. Not just, I think he was wrong, but I think he was wrong because the text shows, or I think she was justified because. This moves the class from opinion into interpretation. Fourth, let students challenge each other. You might ask, who disagrees? What evidence would you use against that? Can anyone defend the opposite view? This is where the activity starts to become genuinely experiential. Students are not just receiving an interpretation, they are forming one, testing it, and revisiting it in real time. And that is the point. The decision debate works because literature is full of pressure points. Characters choose, they act, they fail, they justify themselves, they face consequences. When students debate those decisions, they enter the moral and emotional world of the text. They are no longer just analysing from the outside, they are participating. And in the age of AI, that matters. AI can generate a neat paragraph about a character's motivation, but it cannot sit in a room, take a position, listen to a classmate, respond to a challenge, and rethink its view. That is human learning. So the next time a class discussion feels flat, try this. Find the key decision and ask, was this character right? Make students choose, then make them prove it. It takes 5 minutes to start, and it can change the energy of the whole lesson. The modern mirror. One of the most common student objections to older texts is, why are we studying this? Or more bluntly, how is this relevant? The question can sound dismissive, but underneath, it is a real teaching opportunity. Because very often, the text is relevant. Students just haven't found the bridge yet. This activity is called the modern mirror. The idea is simple. You take a theme, conflict, or a character problem from the text and ask students where they see something similar to the world today. Not exactly the same, not a forced one-to-one comparison, but a modern echo, a mirror. Here's how it works. First, choose a major idea from the text. It might be ambition, isolation, identity, power, revenge, belonging, fear of the outsider, the pressure to conform. Then ask, where do we see this idea today? For example, if you're teaching Frankenstein, you might ask, where do we see the desire to create something powerful before fully understanding the consequences? Students might connect that to AI, biotechnology, social media platforms, or even the race to release new technology before society has caught up. If you're teaching Macbeth, you might ask, where do we see ambition becoming dangerous today? Students might talk about politics, sport, business, social media, fame, or academic pressure. If you're teaching Romeo and Juliet, you might ask, where do we see young people pressured by family, identity, loyalty, or group conflict? Now the text is no longer sitting in the past, it's speaking into the present. The key is not to let the modern example replace the text. That's the mistake. The modern mirror is only the doorway. Once students make the connection, bring them back to the words on the page. You can ask, what is similar, what is different? What does the text help us understand about this issue? What does the modern example help us notice in the text? That movement matters. Out to the world, back to the text. Out to the world, back to the text. That is where the richer discussion starts. The modern mirror works because students often need to feel the human problem before they can analyse the literary one. When they recognise ambition, isolation, fear, pressure, or moral uncertainty in their own world, the older text becomes less remote. It becomes alive. And in the age of AI, this is especially important. Because AI can summarise the theme, it can generate a paragraph on ambition or identity, but students still need to ask, why does this matter? Where do I see this? What do I think about it? What does this text help me understand about being human? That is the work English teachers are uniquely placed to lead. So next time students say a text is not relevant, don't rush to defend the text. Use the objection to help the class and to your teaching advantage. Ask, where do we see this problem today? Let students find the mirror, then bring them back to the text with sharper eyes. The AI contrast exercise. One of the biggest risks with AI in English is not simply that students might use it to complete work. The deeper risk is that students may start accepting fluent answers before they have formed their own judgment. AI can sound confident, balanced, and polished, but polished is not the same as thoughtful. This activity is called the AI contrast exercise. The purpose is simple. Students compare an AI-style response with their own thinking and then explain the difference. First, choose a question about the text. It should be a question that requires judgment, not just recall. For example, is Victor Frankenstein more responsible than the creature? Or is Macbeth a victim of fate? Or is he responsible for his own downfall? Is Juliet reckless, courageous, or both? Second, ask students to answer the question themselves first. This matters. Before they see or imagine an AI response, they need to take a position. Give them a simple sentence start. I believe blank because blank. At this stage, the answer does not need to be perfect, it just needs to be theirs. Third, introduce the AI contrast. You can either show a short AI-generated response or simply ask, what would AI probably say about this? Students will often notice that AI tends to give a balanced, general, careful answer. For example, Victor is partly responsible because he creates the creature, but the creature also makes his own choices. That answer is not wrong, but it may be safe, predictable, and not very alive. Now ask students, what does this answer miss? Where is it too general? What would you challenge? What evidence from the text would make the answer sharper? This is where the real learning happens. Students begin to see that English is not about producing a smooth paragraph. It is about making a judgment, supporting it, testing it, and refining it. The AI response becomes useful because it gives students something to push against. They can agree with part of it, they can reject part of it, they can improve it, they can make it more precise. A good follow-up prompt to the class is rewrite the AI-style answer so it sounds more like a real reader with a clear view. That one instruction can shift students from passive acceptance to active interpretation. The AI contrast exercise works because it teaches students a crucial habit. Don't confuse fluency with insight. In the age of AI, students will have access to instant explanations, instant summaries, and instant paragraphs, so English teaching becomes even more important, not less, because students need to learn how to ask, is this true? Is this specific? Is this supported by the text? Do I actually agree? That is a human skill. So next time you want to bring AI into the English classroom, don't just ask students to use it, ask them to challenge it. Let AI provide the first draft and let students then do the thinking. The one-line verdict. Sometimes the simplest classroom activities are the most powerful. This one takes almost no preparation. It works with almost any text, and it gives every student a way to form a clear view. Here's the idea. At the end of a lesson, discussion, or reading task, ask students to complete one sentence. I believe X because Y. That's it. One line, one claim, and one reason. For example, after studying Frankenstein, the student might write, I believe the creature is more human than Victor because he longs for connection, while Victor runs from responsibility. After studying Macbeth, the student might write, I believe Macbeth is responsible for his own downfall because he chooses ambition, even after recognising the moral cost. After studying Romeo and Juliet, a student might write, I believe Juliet is courageous because she acts with conviction in a world where others try to control her. The point is not to produce a perfect essay sentence. The point is to make something about the student's thinking visible. Many students can sit through a discussion without ever really committing to review. They listen, they nod, they write notes, but we may not know what they actually think. The one-line verdict changes that. It asks each student to move from vague understanding to a definite position. And that matters because English is not about recognising themes or identifying techniques. It's about forming interpretations. It's about saying, this is what I think the text is showing, and this is why. Here's how I would use it. First, give students 1 minute of silent writing. No discussion yet. Everyone writes their own one-line verdict. Second, ask them to compare with a partner. Do they agree? Do they disagree? Is one answer more precise than the other one? Does one use stronger evidence? Third, invite a few students to share. Then ask the class, what would make that verdict stronger? Can we make it more specific? Can we connect it more closely to the text? That last step is important. Students learn that a first opinion can become a sharper interpretation. You can also use this as an exit ticket, because before students leave, they hand in one sentence. As a teacher, you quickly see who has understood the lesson, who is still vague, and which ideas might be worth revisiting next time. In the age of AI, this activity becomes even more valuable. AI can generate a paragraph, summarise a character, produce a polished response, but students still need to practice forming their own judgment. They need to decide what they believe. They need to explain why. They need to make their thinking clear enough that someone else can respond to it. That's not a small skill. That's the foundation of interpretation, discussion, argument, and writing. So at the end of your next English lesson, try this. Don't ask for a paragraph, don't ask for a full analysis. Just ask for the one sentence. I believe X because Y. You may be surprised by how much thinking that one line reveals. The inner voice rewrite. One of the hardest things for students to do in English is understand why a character acts the way they do. They might know what happened in the plot. They might be able to identify a theme or recognise a technique, but they may still struggle to answer the deeper question, what is going on inside this character? That is where this activity helps. The idea is that students take a moment from the text, a key moment from the text, and rewrite it as the character's private thoughts. Not as a summary or an essay paragraph, but as an inner voice. What might this character be thinking, fearing, wanting, justifying, or hiding in this moment? First, choose a short scene or moment where a character is under pressure. It might be before a major decision, after a betrayal, during a moment of guilt, when a character feels trapped, excluded, ambitious, ashamed, afraid, or misunderstood. For example, in Frankenstein, students might rewrite Victor's inner thoughts just after the creature comes to life. What is he thinking? Is he horrified, guilty, disgusted? Is he afraid of what he's done? In Macbeth, students might rewrite Macbeth's private thoughts before killing Duncan. Is he still unsure? Is he convincing himself? Is he afraid of failure? Is he already becoming someone different? In Romeo and Juliet, students might rewrite Juliet's inner thoughts before taking the potion. Is she brave, terrified, desperate, defiant? Second, give students a clear limit. 5 to 8 lines is enough. This keeps the task focused. The goal is not creative writing for its own sake. The goal is interpretation. Third, make students anchor their rewrite in the text. They should not invent anything completely disconnected from the scene. Their inner voice should come from clues already present in the text. What the character says, what they do, what other characters say about them, and what the audience already knows. A useful prompt is, write what the character might be thinking, but not saying. That phrase is powerful because literature is often about what is not fully spoken. Fear beneath the confidence, guilt beneath the ambition, loneliness beneath the anger, or love beneath defiance. Fourth, after students write, ask them to explain one choice. For example, why did you make the character sound afraid? Which line of the text gave you that idea? What evidence supports that version of the inner voice? This moves the activity from imagination back into analysis. And that movement matters. Inside the character, back to the text. Inside the character, back to the text, back to the evidence. The inner voice rewrite works because it turns character analysis into an experience. Students aren't just saying Macbeth feels conflicted. They're trying to inhabit that conflict. They're not just saying Victor is horrified. They're exploring what that horror might sound like from the inside. And in the age of AI, this is especially valuable because AI can generate character analysis and produce a polished paragraph about the motivation of the character. But students still need to practice empathy, judgment, interpretation, and voice. They need to ask, what would it feel like to be this person in this moment? What evidence supports that? What does this reveal about the text? So next time students are struggling with character motivation, try this. Choose a pressure point in the text. Ask them to write the character's unspoken thoughts. Keep it short. Then bring every choice back to the text. This is where inner voice becomes literary insight.